Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to be going over my top 5 tips I think every single Aatrox player needs to know. Now, he is the new Terror of the top lane. He is extremely strong. His new items make him very good, and his recent buffs just make him into an unstoppable drain tank. So, my goal behind this video is to make you a better League of Legends player, as well as to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. I put timestamps at every single point of my video that are going to be up top if you want to skip a certain tip, or if you want to skip this intro. If you want to contact me directly with any questions, I am going to have a pinned comment down below with my Discord and my stream, and I'm a bit limited with this format, only doing 5 tips, so make sure to comment down below if you have your own tips for Aatrox. To know that there's a rather large one-trick community, so I heavily encourage you guys to help out anyone that might stumble across this video. And with all that out of the way, let's jump into tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 1 for Aatrox, we're going to be talking about his strengths and weaknesses. We are going to be going over just a little bit of housekeeping. A lot of people are going to be trying to pick him up because of how currently strong he is. So, the skill builds. What you want to max first is going to be Q, E, W. Your items, you're really going to be wanting to go Gore Drinker. It's just really strong overall, giving you a lot of ability haste and giving you that mythic passive with ability haste. Black Cleaver is very strong in any situation, as well as Death Dance against AD heavy, Sterix against very burst heavy, Ravenous Hydra is going to be great when snowballing or into a third item when you want a little bit more healing. Steel Caps into AD heavy teams, Merc Treads into very CC heavy teams, and then Lucidity when you are snowballing and you just need that little bit of extra power. Conquer is a must, Triumph is a must. The legend lines you can just go based on enemy team comp. Last Stand is absolutely extremely important because you're going to be getting more healing out of the more damage that you're going to be doing, and you are going to just really need this because you're going to spend a lot of time at low HP thresholds. And then Domination is very strong. Taste of Blood can be good if you have in a little bit of a struggle in lane, but you can also go sudden impact if you feel like you're in a rather easy lane that you think you can snowball. And then Ravenous Hunter is an absolute must, giving you a lot of extra omnivamp. So overall, when picking Aatrox, he struggles into very ranged mobile enemy team comps. He is an absolute monster into very heavy melee champion matchups. So if they have a Leona at a support, if they have a Diana in the mid lane, if they have a Alawi up in the top lane, and they have a Xin Zhao out of the jungle, there's 4 melee champions. This is where Aatrox is just absolutely going to dominate because he's going to be able to hit several people with his Qs, and he's just going to get an insane amount of healing. And a lot of those very tanky champions are just going to be these big pinatas that you smack for a whole bunch of extra life. So always make sure before you're locking in Aatrox, it's be like, okay, this is going to be a pretty good game because I'm not going to get kited out constantly. They don't have too much CC and they have a lot of melee champions, so you really want to look for those variables when you are playing Aatrox. And that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and jumping into tip number 2, I'm going to just show you guys how insane the amount of healing we are going to be able to provide when we are in the enemy fountain. Now, I'm not going to be using my W, I'm not going to be using my E for resets. All I'm going to be doing is throwing Qs, using my Gore Drinker maybe once or twice, and then using the World Ender. And we're going to see at the end, I really want you guys to look at the death recap and show you how much damage is going to be taken. Now, these wells, they do a amount of true damage, so this is there's absolutely no mitigation coming out from either my armor or magic resist that would be in the team fights. So I'm going to be infinitely harder to take down in team fights and then I am over here in the fountain. And let's give it a try. Let's teleport in. I do not have auto refresh cooldowns, which would make it a lot easy. So I'm going to go in, we're going to press R, we're going to hit Q, and we're just going to hit a couple Qs on the people. We're going to Gore Drinker because we didn't have Q up there. We're just going to Q. We're going to Q. We're going to almost get our second Gore Drinker off, and we took 24k damage. Now imagine how long it's going to take several enemy targets to do 24k damage on a pretty mobile target as Aatrox, E-dashing around, as well as having to deal with the distractions coming out of your allies and your ability to take down enemies and really just provide a very solid front line. So you really want to look for those circumstances against enemy team comps with a lot of enemy melee champions that are going to provide you with just these little pinatas that you can smack and get a bunch of healing out of, and you are going to be able to just take an insane amount of damage and threat away from your allied champions. And that will wrap up tip number 2. All right, and jumping into tip number 3, I'm going to go over something that is exceedingly important. Now, I know Ignite can be a little bit tempting to take and just really start running over lanes, but I think Teleport is an absolute must because, first of all, you're able to teleport down to bot lane and have a really strong effect around the map, but in team fights, a flanking Aatrox with Teleport is absolutely devastating. Keep in mind that we were just able to heal up 24k damage coming out of the Fountain's true damage. Now imagine an Aatrox running in on a backline with no front line to peel them at an extremely fast movement speed. How are these backline champions going to do 24k damage to you? I mean, how are they going to possibly escape if they are immobile? So really look for as many flanks as possible. You should be asking your support, hey, can you put up some flank wards around the objectives just so you can get in very strong positions? Because whenever you're playing a bruiser and you have access to backlines, it is just going to be a very devastating thing when you are playing Aatrox. So always look for ganks, always look for coming out of Fog of War and popping your World Ender a little bit early and just getting into very, very strong position where you're able to chase out the enemy champions. The last thing you want to do on Aatrox when you are in the overall game is you do not want to be running just from you just don't want to be running straight at them like this, because it is very, very easy to be like, oh my god, Aatrox is coming, I need to CC them, I need to CC them. So as long as the enemy engages on maybe some of your allied champions, they commit some of their big ultimates, maybe Thresh commits his hook, that is a lot of peel that you are not going to have to worry about. Let them engage, maybe a little bit of a 5v4, and then you come in the backline and just start destroying their very, very squishy carries. And this is how you should be looking to play out the team fights. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and getting into tip number 4, we're going to go over a pretty basic combo with Aatrox. We want to go Q1 into W, into Q2, into Q3, and using our Umbral Dash where it is necessary. Now, obviously, you want to be using your Umbral Dash to instigate the most amount of extra damage on the enemy, and that is by getting your Q3 off. But if you are unable to hit your Q2 because maybe of a mobility spell, you would want to amplify your Q2 off with your E. So it's going to take a little bit of learning, but you just really want to make sure that you're hit confirming every single one of the Qs in your combo. So how it's going to look is you are going to do a Q1 into your W, into the Q2, into the Q3, and then you can weave in autos wherever you like there. So again, it's going to be Q1 into W, into Q2, into Q3, and then you can use your dash wherever it is needed. Now this is going to be extremely good because, as you can see with the hitbox that comes out of your W, the enemies are going to be looking to get out on the sides. If they try and run out either through the upper top hand portion, it's going to be way too long for them to get out unless they have an insanely quick movement speed buff on them. So what's great about the Q2 is when you have the W hitbox up, it is really providing the full width of your W hitbox. As you can see here, Q1, we're going to do W, Q2. See how the Q2 covers the entire W skill shot box of they have to escape before getting pulled back in. And then that pull back in is going to enable you to hit your Q3, just doing an insane amount of damage with the crit strike of your Q3. Another small thing, if you're first starting to pick up Aatrox and you don't really have a good understanding of how long his Qs are going to take before they land, because the skill shot shows for a little bit, you can look at his feet. His Qs are going to come out every single time his feet hit the ground. He does a little jump when he starts his Q animation, and then at the end of his jump, it is going to land. So this can be a little bit of a cheat if you are looking to extend your Q with either a flash or an E. You can look to just hold it until the very end to really surprise people with that extra little bit of Q damage by flashing in and really knowing your timings behind the Q. This is going to be very important. It's going to separate the good Aatrox players from the rather poor Aatrox players, and that will wrap up tip number 4. Alright, and getting into the final tip, I heavily encourage especially new Aatrox players to get a very good understanding of the overall map and where you can look to dash over. What this is going to enable you is it's going to provide you with an out in certain skirmishes where there might be a roaming enemy champion coming, maybe a support coming from all the way from bottom lane to screw with your top lane. I'm sure that's happened to everyone a couple of times. Taking skirmishes in these kind of areas is going to be a lot more effective than taking skirmishes skirmishes up here because you have a very quick out that you can use with your Umbral Dash on your E, as well as just going around the map and just getting a good understanding of where you can dash over and where the E stops, and where it is going to be right here is as soon as you hit this rock right here, is this jagged line, you are going to be unable to dash over the wall right here. So you're not able to get over, but pretty much every other part of the wall over here, unless you're just doing it in a terrible dash area, you can get over the wall, and this is going to be rather important. As well as skirmishes around the mid lane, that happens a lot, particularly in lower elo solo queue in NA. Playing around, if say this the blue side is your allied team's base, you can get very easy escapes on this side. So this is going to be a lot of a safer side to be on in skirmishes, and then this is going to be a little bit more dangerous because you are unable to E away back on the wall. So this is a little bit of a weak side, and this is a little bit of a strong side with Aatrox because you're able to dash over, and then you can just inverse those sides if you switch. And if you're on the top side of the map, this is going to be your weak side because you can't dash over the wall. But if you are on this side, this is going to be your strong side. So always keep this in mind when playing Aatrox, and being cognizant of where you can take some little bit more risky and limit test in the different areas. Also, doing that combo that I just did to really juke people out on these strong sides, over and then blast coning back over it. Very few champions have enough dashes to follow you through that. Maybe just something like an Akali can follow you through it, but just get a good understanding of where you can E over walls in different situations when playing Aatrox is going to be extremely crucial. So always keep that in mind. That's going to wrap up my final tip, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below, and as always, take it easy.